To order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of April 13th, 2021 at 7:06 p.m. This is a web-based meeting. First on our agenda is a public hearing, Ortiz re-subdivision, 117 Chestnut Ridge Road. And Kitty, if you'd be kind enough to read the public notice.
Sure. Public notice. The Bethel Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on the following application on April 13th, 2021 at 7 p.m. using the virtual platform Zoom to hear the following application. David, Robert, and Tamara C. Ortiz for a re-subdivision located at 117 Chestnut Ridge Road. The property is located in the R20 zone, can be found in the assessor's records as map 32, block 49, and lot 18. The public may send comments via regular mail and email at the landuse@bethelct.gov. Comments must be received by 3:30 p.m. on 4/12/2021 in order to be included. Pat is chairman.
Thanks, Kitty. All right. Who is speaking on behalf of this application?
Unmute myself. There I go. Mark Lancor.
Thank you. You're up.
Okay, I want to thank the commission. It's a beautiful spring day out there today, and it's a pleasure to be before you. I represent David and Tamara Ortiz, who had purchased this property several years ago from its neighbor Jeffrey Cole to the south, and so now they're in the process of subdividing the property into 2 lots. Currently, the location of the property, and if you don't mind, I might be able to, if I could get a share, I can actually bring up the maps.
Green sharing is enabled, Mr. Lancor.
Okay. Now, like with everything, sometimes it goes and sometimes it doesn't. So please have some patience. I'll see what I can do to bring this up. Let's see. I got to get into my files. Okay. Obviously, let's see. I'm going to go to the file. Can you see that?
Not yet. It's not open.
It's not open. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop share. I've done this before. And then I'm going to go back and pick it up off of the screen here. Here we go. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
There you go. I don't know why it always works the second time. So this is the property. It's again located at 117 Chestnut Ridge Road. It is approximately 2.7 acres as it exists today. Currently on the property, and you can see where my mouse is, and I will help to increase the size a little bit so that people can see this a little clearer. There's an existing 1.5-story dwelling, a garage, and an accessory building that prior use was probably used as a wood shop or something else of that sort. And the access to the road, to the property is along this driveway that comes across a culvert, which crosses what we call Simpog Brook, which runs runs from south, believe it or not, to north, following Chestnut Ridge Road. So the owners of the property, the Ortizes, are now looking to subdivide it so that they can create a new house site for themselves, which is lot number 2. Lot number 1 would be what we considered the existing residence, which will be basically taken down to about 0.7 acres, recognizing that the existing zone is a half-acre zone. The parcel number 2, which is to the west, abuts up against existing town open space to the west, and there's an existing residential housing to the north and to the south. And that is the property that is currently owned by Jeffrey Cole and Jennifer Malik, who is the folks that the Ortizes purchased the property from. Now, in terms of how to access lot number 2, there's a scenario is what is preferred and what is being presented is that Mr. Knoll has provided a agreement to allow for an access way along this section of his property to come into lot number 2. Now, the question may be why. Well, when you look at the existing conditions here at the site, currently our properties to the north, the neighbor to the north, when they built this subdivision, which was a couple of lots, they actually created a ditch, a drainage ditch, which follows along this northerly property line, and it severely encroaches into the Ortiz's property. And that is active because this property's driveway and their house setting are pretty close to this area. So David and Tamara are not interested in creating this issue. They would like to be able to make arrangements with the property owners to the north in order to allow for that conveyance to continue in favor of bringing the driveway along this edge through an access easement that is going to be obtained again from the neighbor, Noel, who's also on the signature on the application because of this provision for this access way. It makes sense. Anybody that's visited this site, this is actually the most logical place to cross to bring up into this property. If you were to come down from this lower section, which could be done, this ditch would have to be removed, relocated off site, and the driveway would be in the vicinity of about 150 to 170 feet longer, which is not desirable in this case. So each lot, lot number 1, the septic system and the well are going to be completely upgraded on that lot. Those plans were submitted to health and were approved some time ago. Lot number 2 would end up with, again, a septic system and a well and drainage that would be associated with the particular driveway. I'm going to show you the next. So this is a little color diagram, kind of gives you a little bit more height of what's going on in terms of grading and as such. The area in dark green is the actual wetlands limit that's associated with the brook. The area in light green is the area associated with the upland review area for wetlands. I know it may not concern this commission, but I think it's important that it be pointed out. And the areas are noted, you can see in blue are our drainage system. The drainage system basically comprises of some yard drains. This site, we've done a number of test pits. The back end of the site is heavily set with bedrock, very well defined up this area. And we've accounted for it in the design. And then we have a series of drainage connections that go into a pretty substantial, this is a rain garden, established rain garden. And then the outlet to that would go through another series of basins down to a pretreatment device before it discharges to the brook. Now, the main emphasis in particular to be noted about this particular location and on the brook is that we did an extensive drainage watershed study. And I tip my hat off and kudos to the town staff and their town consultant. They made themselves available to us because the watershed that comes down to this point is about 213 acres. And there's a number of crossings associated both with Chestnut Ridge Road and some other driveways. And we needed to get some guidance working with the town staff and the town consultant in order to be able to properly size a culvert here at this location, which is located in blue. those meetings came up with a recommendation that we would hold whatever the town controlled upstream of us, which is a 42-inch corrugated plastic pipe the town put in not too long ago. And that really is what controls the amount of flow that could go into the brook before anything breached down the road. So that was the agreed upon criteria, and we have complied with that in our drainage report. As of about 5:40 today, we received the drainage, the comments from the town engineer. There's, a number of comments. All of them I kind of quickly glanced at before this meeting. All of them can be addressed. It's some housekeeping, some additional recommendations. All of those things can be worked out between now and with the extension to the hearing. So again, the other comments that were received, we've gotten a positive review from the health department, which I believe is in your file. We have not gone before wetlands formally yet, although they've had the application and will be before them this month. And hopefully we can also address everything there so that we could get a positive report from them. So with that, I'm just going to say a summary. Lot number 1 is 0.7 acres. Lot number 2 is around 1.9 acres, which they're retaining most of that area. And I think the plan that's before the commission meets the standards for which your subdivision regulations are noted. So with that, if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
All right, I do have one question. You did mention that you have the plans for lot number 1 approved for the septic. What about for lot number 2?
Well, as with any subdivision, you're really, as the health department's obligation in your regulations is to offer a technical feasibility letter, in which you have, and that is now in your file, and they do provide that both lots are technically feasible for septic. We did provide a extensive amount of detail on the septic plans. They're not just a figment, it's not just lines on a drawing. We provided all the details that would be necessary, that if we were to attain approval, we would immediately turn these around for a regular approval to build the lot. So again, you have a technical feasibility letter and the design is complete.
Thank you. And you're good with the 5 conditions that are showing that the health department is going to be looking for?
No issue. No issue at all.
Okay, thank you. All right, Beth, is there anything you want to add before we move out to the public?
I just want to reiterate what the engineer had said. It was a collaborative effort between our engineers and this engineering firm in coming up with these design drawings for number 1. Number 2, as you all know, we are so busy, and I think a lot of the other engineers on this call can attest to, it's we've never seen it like this in 20 years. We did not get Wright Pierce's comments. Wright Pierce's comments, I would agree for the most part, are housekeeping, E&S controls, stockpiles, things of that nature. And at this point, I think that I really think that there are no other comments to be made outside of the public and the commission if you have questions.
Okay, thank you. David, would you be kind enough just to provide instruction to the public should they have a question?
Certainly. For those who are participating in this Zoom meeting for the first time, you would use the Zoom tab that's at the bottom of the Zoom app to click on the participants icon. From there, you would see a list of participants in tonight's meeting, and you would find your own name or however you're identifying yourself to present or to participate. You would click the blue icon that says raise hand, and that allows you, or that indicates that you have public comment that you wish to offer for tonight's meeting.
All right, if anyone from the public does have any questions.
I'm not seeing any at this time.
Okay, thank you, David. All right, then we'll move out to commission members. Kitty,
I think he's pretty much explained the application, and I don't have any questions right now.
thank you. John,
My first question, or I guess it might lead into another one, is Beth, did they go to ZBA and get a variance? Because currently in the regulations in R20 zone, rear lots are not permitted.
That I understand your question, John, but when you look at the configuration of the lot, the frontage, it does meet the frontage requirements.
Okay, so they got 80 for each lot?
They have 80 for each lot, correct?
Perfect. So it's not going to be considered a rear lot.
No, it is not.
Perfect. Great answer. Thank you.
Penny,
I don't have, no questions.
thank you. Ken,
Like a good project.
Bob,
Just one question. The drainage ditch that's encroaching on the property, how old is that? When did that come into effect?
That was built several years ago. It was a 3-lot subdivision, and the 3 houses there were developed by Mr. Draper.
And what year was that, Beth?
I want to say, I would be guessing. I would say maybe
Oh, okay.
10 years ago,
Oh, all right.
12 years, about 10,
Okay, thanks.
10 or 15. I really can't remember.
That's good. Thank you.
Bob, anything else?
No, that's it.
Thank you. Rob Stoll,
I have no questions, thank you.
Linda Curtis,
No questions, thank you.
Rob Wallace.
No questions at this time, thanks.
Okay, and I have no questions.
I have one more, sorry.
Yes, John, go ahead.
So the preferred driveway, this is for the engineer, is there going to be an easement recorded so that never goes away? Because if you got to use the other driveway, obviously there's issues, but is there going to be a recorded easement?
Yes, there will be. It'll be totally recorded and on record, and it's as if he's going to own it.
Okay, great. That's all I have, Pat. Thank you.
All right, if we're all in agreement, we can close this public hearing this evening, but we can't make a decision until Inland Wetlands submits their report to Planning and Zoning. If I could see by a show of hands, are we all in agreement we can close this?
Aye.
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 That looks good. All right, this public hearing is closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and have a great evening and enjoy yourselves.
Thank
You
you.
too. All right, next on our agenda, Oakwoods LLC Draper, review of proposed appeal settlement with the general public, 9 Good Hill Road. And who is speaking? Oh, we have to do, I'm sorry, there's a public notice that
I
has to
have
be
the
read
public
first.
notice.
Go ahead, Kitty.
Okay, public notice, the Bethel Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on the following application on April 13th, 2021 at 7 p.m. using the virtual platform Zoom to hear the following. Oakwoods LLC and Timothy Draper vs. Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Bethel filed in the Danbury Superior Court December 16th, 2020. This is a settlement agreement under Section 8-8N of the Connecticut General Statute. The subject settlement refers to a property located at 9 Good Hill Road, as founded in the assessor's records as map 23, block 17, and lot 25-1. The public may send comments via regular mail and email at landuseBethelct.gov. Comments must be received by 3:30 p.m. on 4/12/2021 in order to be included. Pat was chairman.
Thank you.
Okay,
All
Pat,
right. Yes, Beth?
can I bring this forward? Because it's a little bit of an unusual situation.
Mhm.
Yes.
Basically, I see that there's a number of members of the general public here this evening. I just want to let everyone know that the hearing is being held tonight to present the design drawings and associated agreements made between the Planning and Zoning Commission and Oakwoods LLC to you, the general public, for your comments and questions before the agreement is finalized through our attorneys and presented to the court. The applicant and his representatives are here to review the design changes to the drawings and stipulations requested by the commission and stated in the rough draft of the agreement, which has been located up in the drive. I don't see Neil here. Is Neil here?
No, I don't see him.
I didn't see him. No.
Okay, well, who's here representing the applicant?
Me, Mike Mizuko.
Oh, Mike, I didn't see you.
No worries.
Okay, so Attorney Marcus isn't going to be here this evening?
I don't know.
Okay,
May still be in Colorado.
all right, Mike.
All right, Mike, it's all yours.
Sure. Good evening. For the record, I'm Mike Mizuko, professional engineer. My office is in Danbury, representing the applicant. And at the last meeting, we submitted revised plans and we had gotten comments back from the health department, public utilities director, and the engineering review from Wright Pierce. And nothing major. With the reduction in the scope of the project, there were just a couple of notes that we added to the plan. And if you want, I'll share my screen and I'll walk you through what changes were made.
Yeah, if you would, please.
Screen sharing is enabled, Mr. Mizuko.
Excuse me, Michael, when you start your presentation, can you act like it is from the very beginning? Walk us through like you did the commission, because this is really for the general public more so than the commission.
Okay, sure.
Thank
So
you.
is everybody seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the scope of the project was reduced from one building with 11 units to 2 buildings with 3 units each. So a reduction from 11 units in total to 6 units. That obviously affected the amount of parking. We reduced the width of the driveway. And instead of the stormwater management system under the parking area previously, we opted to go with a rain garden because we had more room because of the reduction of the parking. And the original plan was calling for the extension of water from Taylor Avenue up Good Hill and onto the site. This plan is calling for just 2 individual wells to service each building. So that's the gist of the changes. With that, the width of the driveway, there was a lot of reduction in the amount of retaining walls. And the utilities didn't change too much other than the main line coming in, because it's serving multiple buildings, is going to be considered a sewer main. And one of the things that the public utilities director asked for was an easement. So I did show an easement along that alignment that encompasses the 2 manholes up until the point where it splits off for each building, and which is considered a lateral at that point. So yeah, that was about it. It's it's a much more reduced project. One of the things that was a concern of the original one was that we had a pipe showing underneath the building in this area. With the revision, we were able to take that pipe around the back of units 1 through 3 to alleviate that concern. And we ended up with some recreation area in the back of each of the unit, as opposed to a central recreation area that we had in this location. So that's the gist of the changes that were made. And I'll just go through the letters. There was a letter from the health department, and I just added, most of the stuff was just cautionary comments, but there was one with regard to the wells. And so I added that as note number 8 on the site utilities plan. And also, you'll see right here, I added utility notes. This is per memo from Thomas Phillip from the Public Utilities. And I basically took his 5 comments and just put them on the plan. They were all relevant to the sewer easement and permits and applications and all that stuff. So I just felt that that was smart to just put right on the plan. And then we just answered the letter from Wright Pierce. And they were concerned about the positive drainage on the back of these units here. And you can see, you know, slopes down and it heads towards the unit. But what we did was I'm showing a swale here. There's a bit of a high point right here, but there's a swale going this way and a swale going this way just to take any of that water so it's not going down to the back of their recreation area. They also wanted us to just label the underground utilities on the legend, which we added. And they talked about the infiltration part of the level spreader, but we took that component out of the level spreader because originally we had a big retaining wall along there and we didn't get some of the advantages of the rain garden we didn't have with we have a 4-bay area now right here. So all of the water comes down the drive in both directions. We have just a break in the curbing along here. So the water just runs into that 4-bay area, then into the rain garden, then out and into that level spreader. But we took that infiltration component out of that mostly because of the retaining wall. And I did include the stormwater calculations for the piping. And I don't know why, I thought I had submitted it earlier or previously, but there was a question about the pipe underneath the driveway, this culvert here. But that was included in there. And I just also noted that there was a concern early on, mostly from the wetland side, that water might be backing up and maybe the inlet being clogged. So we added another pipe just for peace of mind, I guess, if you will, for that. And then the comment about the depth of the groundwater from the rain garden, we had previously addressed that. And so I don't know why it's coming back up again. They're saying that it should be 3 feet. So modeling, but my response to that was that septic systems can be 18 inches and that's the state health code. So there's no reason, in my opinion, in my experience, that 18 inches shouldn't be sufficient. And then it talks about the location of the rain garden, about 25 feet from building foundation or 100 feet if they're upgraded, but we're not 100 feet upgrading of any foundations. And the other point is, it would be one thing if it was a basement with a foundation or a foundation with a basement, but these are all slab on grade. Yeah. So there's really no concern with that. And then there was also a comment about the location next to the retaining wall. But again, this retaining wall is very small. I think it's maybe 3 feet, 4 feet high at the highest point, and it slopes down from the wall into the rain garden. So again, from my perspective, I don't see any issue with that. And there was a comment, just zoom in here to that area where we're having the curb missing just for the drainage. There was concern that somebody could back into that area because it was pretty wide. So we added some bollards and we just added some riprap just to make sure that there wouldn't be any erosion concerns as it comes around and just enters into that 4-bay area. They had asked for a maintenance, just add the maintenance of the plantings of the rain garden into the maintenance schedule. So I did that down here. And they were asking for a detail of the orifice, but it's a simple orifice. It's either a hole that's drilled into a cap or a reducer that's put onto the pipe that gives you a 6-inch opening. And I did correct this call out here. Why is that? Not sure why that's still 6-inch. That should be 8-inch pipe, or I'm sorry, 10-inch pipe. And I'm locked up right now, so bear with me a second. Oh, there we go. I did call out the level spreader, the width on it 3 feet, right here. And also on the site plan, I called out this little retaining wall in the corner where the dumpster is located. So I called it out and put an elevation on it. And then there was concern about erosion of this embankment, this 2-to-1 slope, but there's really no flow coming other than from the slope itself. So I don't see a concern for that. It's not like you have water running over the wall and down the slope in a concentrated point. It just, that's not happening here. And I did add a typical retaining wall detail to the detail sheet. And so those were the changes from when we initially presented the revisions from 11 units to 6.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Neil has joined the meeting.
Yes, thank you. I lost track of time tonight. I'm sorry I'm late.
Mike, in regards to what you just presented, the changes that were requested by Wright Pierce, I believe are minor in nature, and anything that needs to be resolved or if is outstanding can be taken care of at the prior to construction.
Yes, they were all everything was very minor.
Very minor.
Yes.
Mike, could you just take a moment and please go over the lighting and landscaping changes that were made?
Sure. So originally we had some high post lighting in the parking area under the previous 11 unit proposal.
And along the driveway.
And along the driveway. But specifically all of the high post lighting has been removed. So we only have just low 8-foot posts, a couple of them, and we removed the lighting along the driveway. And we just modified the plantings a little bit. And I know there's been some discussion with the neighbor about, providing some protection via a fence or plantings to his liking. And I know the application's been in contact with him. And yeah, so we added some plantings in this rec area just to provide some privacy for each unit. But
well, the request as far as the protection for the neighbor was basically coming from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Right.
So I think we resolved that at the last meeting with the applicant, with the property owner agreeing to, and Neil was there too. So we did come up to an agreement. The rough draft is in there if anybody wants to look at it. Going back to the lighting for a minute, Mike, I think in the back when we were I think it was very important that the lighting along the driveway be removed and the high pole lighting that was originally on the application is removed. I think there's just 2 or 3 spots where there may be some pole lighting. I think it was maybe 12 feet, 8 to 12.
Yeah, we have just 2 8-foot posts.
Fine.
One by the mailbox and one right here out in front of this unit. And then we just have like downward directional floods on each corner of the building.
Right. And again, I think that we discussed as far as them being on timers or things of that or motion sensitive or things of that nature. Again, trying to keep it more in the nature of the neighborhood. Am I correct on that?
Yes. Yes, you are.
Okay.
Yeah, more like a typical residential setting, if you will.
Okay. And as far as the footprint of the houses themselves, they're approximately, of the structures, I think they're around 3,000. Is it 3,000 square feet? Somewhere's around there.
You mean each unit?
No, not each unit, the slab itself.
That footprint.
I had it in my notes and I don't have it here now. I apologize. That's okay.
I'll tell you in a second.
But it's more along what I'm getting at. It's more along the same size as a large home.
Yeah, the footprint is about 1,800 square feet.
Thank you.
And we bumped out the area on the ends.
Yes.
Just for the utility room.
Right.
Because we have to put a water tank in there. So that's what the 2 bump outs on the end are.
I just wanted to remind the commission what the changes were, that some of them were, and the idea of those changes, how they came about.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mike, anything else before we move out to the public?
No, that's it. I mean, I might have missed something, but and Beth caught the lighting. I didn't really think about talking about the changes for the lighting, but no, I don't believe so.
Neil, is there anything you want to add before we move to the public?
If I could again, just since it's a hearing for the record, Neil Marcus. Just to put this all in context, Mike's giving you a good explanation of how the project has been downsized. But the theory that we were following was listening to some of the complaints against the larger project could be boiled down to one significant feature of the prior application, that it was out of character with the single family neighborhood. Interestingly enough, you've heard me say this before, that 8-30G doesn't require you. As a matter of fact, it expects that you'll be out of character with the neighborhood that you're building in, because it's to create the additional density of affordable housing. However, having said that, what we did in coming up with the compromise, and this is a settlement of a lawsuit. I mean, we have an appeal on the issue of public health and safety, and what's before you is a compromise, which means that everybody should like some of it and everybody should hate some of it. And that's what a good compromise is. But the fact of the matter is that we tried to be sensitive to the comments of scale. And as you brought out, Beth, a second ago, in reality, we're building two large houses, and they're not structures that are out of line with a single family neighborhood. The structures themselves are just large houses. They won't be as imposing on the neighborhood as the prior plan. And in doing that, once we came up with the concept of just two houses, three, they're triplexes, there are 3 units in each house. Obviously, everything else scaled down: the driveway, the lighting, the drainage. It all just was shrunken. The process now is, of course, if the commission is in favor of the compromise of the plan, before we present this to the Superior Court as a settlement of the case, we're having the 8-8N hearing this evening, and it invites the public to comment on the aspects of the plan which the commission needs to consider. And that is still public health and safety. So that as we get out into the public comment, we've heard a lot of issues before. Hopefully a lot of them have gone away. They haven't all disappeared, because in reality, the only way that would happen is if there were a single family house on the site to begin with. But what we ask the public to do in their comments is to focus, if they will, questions that Mike can answer or I can answer would be fine, but to focus on whether there are any significant issues of public health and safety that haven't been considered in this plan. So that's just to put it in perspective as to how we got where we are and what we're hoping to accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
Neil, for the benefit of the public, could you speak to the transfer of the southern portion of the property to Mr. Teague?
The transfer, okay. Mike, can you show on there where that is?
Sure. So originally we represented that it would be somewhere around the 528 contour, which is here. And you can see that there's a fence encroachment and a playscape that's on the applicant's property. So it would be this portion of the property that we offered.
Okay, we'll correct basically the encroachment, and that's the plan, Bob. That is an agreement that would be not before the court, because the court's not going to order a transfer. It's an appeal that we're settling. But it's an agreement that has been made between the two property owners to try to cooperate. And quite honestly, with the slope on the property in that area, it is not going to add anything to the project that we're asking you to approve. So the plan is to go forward in that limited area. Yes.
Yep, just for the benefit of the neighbors. Thanks.
Appreciate your asking.
Yep.
All right, Beth, is there anything you want to add before we move out to the public?
No.
All right, we'll now move out to the public. If you have a question, David was kind enough to let you know how to raise your hand. If you want to say something, please start off with your name and your address. It's now open to the public.
I'm seeing one hand at this time from a Mrs. Garrity.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. My name is Rich Garrity. I'm at 13 Good Hill Road. Just a couple quick questions. One being the two wells that are going in. Should I have any concern with water issues having two new wells in below me the way they're going to be? And then also, as far as the scale and part of the settlement, can the builder ask to go bigger than he is now, or is this part of the settlement that he cannot build anything bigger than he is currently?
As far as, if you don't mind, Pat, if I
Yeah, go ahead, Beth.
answer it, I will, just to help us move along with this. As far as the wells, the location of the wells have been reviewed by the Bethel Health Department. If, for instance, the wells are not yielding the needs that have to be needed and water has to be brought in, it does not mean that the project can increase in size. You'll see there's attachments as far as the utilities and things of that nature. If this is going to the courts, this is the agreement.
Beth, can you address, he just wanted to know, will he encounter any water issues?
As far as encountering water issues, it all depends on the review process that would be happening with the Bethel Health Department.
Okay.
The location of the wells in relation to where your well is. You're located uphill, quite uphill from the proposed development, and I'm not qualified to answer if you have water issues. If Neil wants to tackle that part, go for it.
Neil, did you want to address that?
Yeah, again, Mr. Garrity asks an interesting question. The well is fed obviously by underground water that it can be 65 feet in the ground or 365 feet in the ground. I mean, wells vary in depth. So anytime a neighbor of a property drills a well, there's a risk to anybody who happens to be tapped into the same seam. Now, if it's a strong enough seam, it will serve not only one well, but a real good aquifer will serve 100 wells. I mean, but what's going on under the ground is a little dicey when you drill. However, his question, if you're going to go with probability, when uphill property has a well and the next well is significantly downgrade, it is unlikely that even the underground water is running up the hill. So anything that would be tapped into it on this site would probably be below the flow of the underground water that's feeding the uphill wells. So again, Rich, there is no guarantee ever when you drill wells as to when you're going to hit the water, how much water you're going to hit, what the depth is going to be. But using just sort of general logic and having listened to a lot of geohydrologists, Russ Slayback was the dean, and I used him on many applications. They talk about different cones of influence. And when the downhill well is significantly down gradient, he would say that the likelihood of an interface is remote. So I'll go with what Russ Slayback said years ago, but there is no guarantee. And by the way, the interesting thing is Connecticut law doesn't protect wells. It doesn't protect you from a neighbor putting a well in right next to your house and interfering with your water flow, because everybody has the same rights to what's under the ground. So hopefully, I'm not sure that I gave you the answer that says, great, I got nothing to worry about. But I think that you have very, very, very little to worry about.
Thank you, Neil.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to ask a question?
Mary Ann Kula? Yes, I'd like to ask a question.
Mary Ann,
First
your
of all-
address, please?
Oh, 17 Good Hill Road, Bethel, Connecticut.
Thank you.
I have to say this is a big improvement. And as you say, no one's going to be happy with everything. I do have a few questions. Why is this not going to be on a town water? Because wells are a big consideration, and I have had, changes in my water during dry seasons. So that's my first question. The second is there are a couple of trees between Teague's property and the mailbox for number 9. There's a very nice oak, and I am wondering if those are going to remain. Yeah, you're in the right section there. Yeah, could those 2 trees stay? Has anybody thought about this? Because they add to the neighborhood. They're the trees. I'm sorry, I wish I had yeah, okay, I do. They're in this little section. There's an oak and there's another one that had some storm damage.
Those are proposed to stay.
Super, thank you. And the next question is, the town is trying to go green, and that's obvious with the big solar farm at the transfer station. It would seem like these houses could easily have solar panels on them, and I wondered if that had been considered.
Mary Ann, if you want to ask all of your questions, they can then address them.
Oh, okay, fine.
Thank you.
And then the other thing that no one's talked about, except the neighbors, is that, the fronts of these houses were not very attractive and they're asymmetrical. Can he get a little bit of architectural assistance? So those are my questions. And they basically boil down to water. The trees, I'm glad they're staying. The lights, that's a big improvement. Maybe solar panels would work. And improving the exterior of these 3 units. And I know that maybe we can't answer all of those tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Neil, do you want to address these? Or
I'll try those real quickly. First of all, to Ms. Cool, I appreciate the fact that she recognizes that it's a big improvement for the neighborhood. I appreciate that. We've eliminated town water here because, quite honestly, we don't think that there's a demand for this site. We think we can supply enough water, the conventional artesian wells. The town water is a cost. What we tried to do is to reduce the cost because we're not spreading it out over as many units. Again, the whole idea of affordable housing was that you increase your density so you can have lower cost units because you make it up with the market rate units. And once you start decreasing density, you've got to recost your project. And here, it just didn't make any sense to do town water for basically.
See, that leaves the neighbors carrying the weight, the risk of this project, because we're all concerned that we're on wells and wells go dry.
Yeah, that you're absolutely correct. But you're adding 12 bedrooms, 6. You're basically building 2 6-bedroom houses. That would normally not warrant a town water system. Now, between you and me, having heard some of the comments at the prior hearings, it seems to me that Good Hill Road itself, as it exists, may be a candidate for the next extension of the Bethel water system. They talked about, for fire safety, for, as you said, because some of the wells tend to run dry. That, to the extent that water is ever extended out here and they do a benefit, an assessment for benefits, then this project, as well as your house and everybody else, will all contribute on the formula that the town uses. However, at this point, the proposal that's before the commission does not seem to have any impact directly on the existing water conditions in Good Hill that would warrant the town water extension. So that's the problem. As to could the houses have solar panels? Between you and me, most houses could have solar panels if they face the right direction.
The thing is, there's also even better alternatives than solar panels. There are solar shingles now, like roofing tile.
The Tesla product is apparently well thought out, but extraordinarily expensive at the moment. Now,
no, you just lease them.
Yeah, but that makes it. Yeah, the leasing plans are deceptive. I've seen too many people think that there's a great savings, but they've got a lot of hidden costs in them. But the answer to your question is, these two houses can't be treated by the town any differently. So what you're really suggesting, and you ought to follow up on it, is that the town of Bethel ought to consider establishing regulations that either require or encourage solarization. With that, sometimes is town money is incentives. There's certainly sometimes federal and state money, but the answer is Tim Draper will examine anything that makes this property has a cost benefit. And if he determines he can put solar on there, he'll do it, I'll assure you. But at the moment, it's not going to be a condition or a requirement, because it's not a requirement in the town of Bethel, even though I have to agree with you, it's a good idea. It's a great idea, just doesn't exist. And as to the architectural rendering, we're going to try to build buildings here that are architecturally acceptable, but quite honestly, we're building affordable housing. There's a limit to how much a developer can be expected to spend on the aesthetics. These buildings will be pleasant looking, but I'm not sure that they'll be up for Architectural Digest awards. I'm not sure, and I doubt it actually. But we'll keep that in mind. And the interesting thing is, quite honestly, if you look at some of the stuff that Tim has done, I've architecturally, a lot of it, I think I drive down Chestnut Street every day, and there's a cluster of houses he put at the foot of Chestnut Street on the left-hand side going into Bethel. And when they built to that, what I thought was a very difficult site, I said, that's not going to be very nice. But at the end of the day, what came out of there is a relatively attractive set of houses. Again, I'm not sure Architectural Digest is going to note that, but they're nice. We will take into consideration the comments that you made and try to come up with something that is pleasing to the neighborhood as well as to the developer, because he takes a lot of pride in what he builds.
Well, I just want to add to that, Neil, Mike Masuko.
Yep.
The revisions to the buildings, there has been an enhancement to the architectural design.
I know.
Because they're separated, there's porches on the front, so I don't know if they're just general comments, but these are better looking buildings than the previous one.
Just in the mass alone, they're better looking. They're not in mass itself.
Sure.
So I think we've accomplished it, Marion, but beauty's in the eyes of the beholder.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments before we move on to commission members? Okay, it doesn't look like we're seeing anything.
Yes, there's a Ryan Cornish. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hi, Ryan Cornish, 21 Good Hill Road. I have two two questions really. One is it states that, and I know we were talking about wells a minute ago, it states that if the well doesn't meet the required standards, and by all probability they will, but it says if not, it goes to public water. How do you find out what the state of that is, and will anybody be notified if they do have to in fact switch to town water and run that line from Taylor Road up the hill? And because ultimately our concern is still blasting on the road. The second thing is, while there has been what I would say considerable upgrades to the layout and the plans here, when Mr. Marcus says that they're building affordable housing and cost has to be thought about in this building, I believe only 2 units are affordable housing and the rest he's getting full pop for rent on. So making a building that's a little bit more expensive, that's a little bit better looking than even what is being proposed here is probably not an egregious recommendation in my estimation. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll take the comment about the wells. Once the wells are drilled and there's a yield test done, then that would indicate how much storage is needed as far as tanks inside the building. And obviously the water would be tested for quality like any other well. And those are the two requirements, the quality and the quantity, that have to be certified that it meets the needs, the requirements for the building and the regulations for the town and the state in terms of quality.
And is it ever checked?
That aspect with the well where it has to be drilled and you have to understand the yield of the well. My question is, if the yield is not sufficient coming out of the well, does that mean that it just automatically you guys start drilling and blasting or ripping up the road to do whatever has to be done to get the water up there? Or is there another stage where everyone's notified that this is about to happen?
Not sure. Well, it depends on the storage requirements will depend on the yield of the well. So if you have a well that has a low yield, you can provide more storage for peak periods and still meet the requirements of the state. As far as, if they ran out of water and they had to run the water main up the street, I'm not sure what the procedure is for the public utilities department to notify the neighbors. But I mean, at some point, I'm sure that you'd be involved.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, I do have some experience with public utilities in Bethel recently when it came to doing their sidewalk project. And in that case, they actually went out and notified individual homeowners of the schedule and when they were planning to do the work and what the work was. So I was impressed by the fact. And Ryan, if it's any help to you, if a water line has to be brought up Good Hill Road, I'm confident that the town will notify the neighbors as to when it'll be done and how it's going to be done. And they're pretty good about it.
Who would like to address his second, talking about the building, the cost affordable versus market rate?
I'll address that.
Thank you.
I've done so much affordable housing since that act was passed in the late 80s, early 90s. I call it the Robin Hood theory, that you basically take from the rich to give to the poor. So to the extent we do a 30% set aside in affordable housing for 40 years, the assumption is that the market rate units subsidize the affordable housing units. And they subsidize them at two levels. First is the cost of construction, and second is the return if they are rented. Usually if they're sold, it's just the construction cost. But if they're rental units, then it's the differential between the market rate and the affordable rate. So it's nice to say that all that a commission, the people should look at is, well, they're building 4 market rate units, but the 2 affordable units are a drain. They really are. And the larger the project, the bigger the drain, and that's why densities are increased for affordable housing. So it's not, the mathematics you're talking about, Ryan, are not all that simple. And the fact of the matter is that the theory of the statute is that the housing that we develop basically can't be distinguished as to the affordable units and the market rates. So when you drive into any project that's got affordable housing, you're not supposed to be able to point out the units that are the affordable units. They're all supposed to be of similar size and qualities and design. So there's not a huge profit line in affordable housing construction today. As a matter of fact, there are parts of the state where they tell you you can't even build affordable housing that makes sense. New Haven and Middlesex counties. Everybody will say Fairfield County is one of the few places where you can really successfully do affordable housing. And that is because of towns like Bethel that are attractive and are growing. Towns like Danbury that are attractive and growing, that still have the allure of being commuter towns, even though nobody goes to an office anymore. But the fact of the matter is that it's not as simple, Ryan, as you think, and to figure out the economics. And the commitment to affordable housing is a long-term commitment, and the return is out over a longer period of time, so that you can't expect affordable housing to have a lot of excess funds that can be spent on things that are, I won't say frivolous, but more frivolous than standard construction. So the long and the short of it is, things aren't always as they appear to be. But again, we've heard the comments. Mike's already said this project is much more attractive now than it was originally, and it is. And we'll be somewhat sensitive and see what we can do. But in terms of the actual architectural, again, your regulations don't control architectural design in the town generally, and you can't obviously carve out architectural standards under 8-30G. It's the exact opposite. 8-30G would be exempt. But that's, we hear you guys, and we heard you before, and we came up with a project that we think is a lot better. And if we can make it even more pleasing without something that is an extraordinary expense, we'll try to get that done. That's what I can tell you.
Neil.
Thank you, Neil. Can I just say one more thing? With all due respect, if the affordable housing is such a drain on the builder, and I absolutely understand the need for more affordable housing in Bethel. Let me just start off with that. But if the financials on a builder were so egregious, they wouldn't build it. If he was having such a financial hardship with the other buildings that he's jammed into town all over the place, he wouldn't keep building them. It is financially viable. It is why he keeps building these buildings in places that are not appropriate.
No, you
So
misunderstood.
it's irrelevant that you think
you
that
misunderstood.
it's a financial hardship on the builder, but the reality is he keeps building them. So it's clearly not that much of a financial hardship. Asking a little bit of more respect in terms of what the building looks like, because we have a really nice neighborhood. We have a bunch of nice people that live here, and we just don't want an eyesore in our backyards. I know that you guys have done a little bit in terms of making this look better than it was before, because before it was absolutely ridiculous what it looked like. But making it look a little bit better is not that big of an ask, Neil.
Again, I think you misunderstood me, and I want to clear up. Building affordable housing, I said, in some counties in the state just doesn't work. In Fairfield County, because of the housing market, it does work. However, when you add affordable units to a project, it puts a drain on the project because, for example, if you have to sell a selling as opposed to renting, if you're selling a condominium unit it's to somebody who makes 60% or 80% of the median income. Under the formula under the act, the cost, the amount that you can sell it for is below the cost of building it in most cases. It doesn't pay for the materials in there. So what you have to do is you have to take the balance of your market rate and make sure that there's enough money in that construction to cover the cost. The drain is not the project. The project can make sense. I don't want you to think that people build affordable housing to lose money. I'm just saying that the affordable housing units put a drain on the project that makes it important to pay attention to your costs. Otherwise, you can't build the project. So it's not that I don't want to give you the impression that people who build affordable housing do it to lose money. They don't. They do it to make a return and to provide a housing opportunity. But they do want to make a return, clearly. It's just that the units themselves, by being priced below the market, particularly for sale, require you to recover that in the market rate units. So, and by the way, it is not simple mathematics. We spend a great deal of time figuring out whether we even want to bring affordable housing projects before commissions, because we've got to first figure out whether the balance of the economics makes sense, because you've got certain fixed infrastructure, water, sewer, septic wells, whatever. All of those you have to spread out. They don't change if the unit sells below cost or above cost. So that's what I'm saying. It's not as simple as you think. I don't mean to leave you with the impression that people build affordable housing to lose money. They don't. I'm sorry if I did.
All right, if we may move on now, if there are no other public comments. David, are you seeing anyone?
Not at this time.
Thank you. All right, I have no comments on this. Kitty?
Oh, I just have one. Mike, maybe you could explain a little bit better. I was reading through the health department as far as the water testing. They said that if the water testing shows that there isn't enough, then atmospheric storage tanks are necessary. Now, depending on what the lack is, could those tanks be enlarged so there would be more water available, so there wouldn't be a drain on other systems?
It's not really how it works. If you're using,
that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, you're using this. Let's say you're using X number of gallons. That's not going to change based on the yield of the well. The reason why he made that comment about the storage, the atmospheric storage capacity, which you need anyway with a well, you have to have a storage tank. With the storage tank, if you have low yield, you need to increase the storage for peak periods, because you might have a demand that exceeds the yield of the well. So you have to make up that difference with storage.
So what size would these tanks be? Well, how many gallons would they hold? And where would they be?
Well, where would they be? They would be. That's why we have these bump outs on the end of the building. They would be stored. They would be placed in here. It's like a mechanical room.
Oh, okay. So they're not in ground.
No, they're not. Sometimes back in the day they used to do them in ground, but
right. I remember that. Yes.
Yeah. So these are just standard tanks, but they might need multiple tanks if the yield is lower. That's all.
Okay. All right. I think that's about all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kitty. John?
I don't have anything. Thanks, Pat.
Penny?
Nothing now.
Ken?
Mike, just one question. What is the minimum gallons per minute that's going to be acceptable for the units?
Well, there is a minimum yield on the well, and I don't know if it's different for a multifamily house, but again, once you get down into the lower yields, it just means you have to have more storage capacity. And I think somewhere around 3 or 4 gallons per minute is when you don't need any additional storage.
Okay, thank you.
Bob Legnard?
Neil, my understanding is that if it proves that they can't put 2 wells in there, then there would have to be an adjustment to the project that says they would have to bring the water line in.
Oh,
And that would, again, have to go through the public utility meetings.
Correct. That's correct. That's a fair assessment.
Okay, now, the other thing I have to say is, I understand what you're trying to say about, you know, affordable units. It's similar to retail where, you know, that's why you have, you know, you can go to Macy's and get a suit for $200. And a few weeks later, you can go back and get one for $150 because they made the profit on one unit. And so it becomes a balancing act. Is that true?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. You know, by the way, we used to say that in grocery stores, you'd have, you know, when milk or eggs or bread sold at below cost or at cost, those were the loss leaders.
Loss leaders, right?
They're loss leaders. And that's very similar to what happens with affordable housing units. They're loss leaders.
That's all I
Anything
have.
else, Bob?
That-
Rob Stoll.
I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Linda?
Yeah, no questions, thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Rob Wallace?
Good here, no questions.
Thank you, Rob. Beth, is there anything that you want to add? And is there any reason that we can't close this tonight, even though we can't make a decision on it while we wait for inland wetlands report?
Yes, first of all, I think it's important that we thank the residents of Good Hill Road for their input during the whole process.
Absolutely.
I think that this compromise is a result of taking some of the input that was given to us during the public hearing process. And I want to thank the commission for the time and effort that they put in during the executive sessions and trying to work with the property owner in coming to this conclusion. And as Neil said, this is not a win, nobody wins. It is a settlement between all of us in trying to put a product together that is acceptable. And as far as closing the public hearing, there any minor items that have to be addressed can be done after the public hearing is closed. You cannot make a decision until after the Inland Wetlands Commission comes to their conclusions and makes their decision. And at that time, a final draft of a settlement agreement will be reviewed by you as the commission. I see that Attorney Andrus is here this evening too. And then it'll go forth from there. And I'd like to just ask Chuck if he had any comments he wanted to make in regards to this.
Chuck Andrus, attorney for the commission. No, I don't have any comments now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Anything else, Beth?
No, that's all.
All right, commission members, are we all in agreement that we can close this public hearing by voice or raising hands?
Yes.
Aye.
Any against closing this? All right, this public hearing is closed. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is our business meeting, and I'd like to seat Rob Wallace for Rich Tibbetts. If everyone's had an opportunity to read the meeting minutes.
Motion to
So
approve.
if I may have a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes of 3/23/21.
Second.
I'm sorry, was that you, Penny?
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Next is a work session. Victoria Heron, Tracy Castelli, site plan 8-30G, additional 5 units, 28 South Street. At our last meeting, we had asked staff to draft a resolution of approval, which they've done. If I may have someone to read that approval. Anyone?
Okay, I got it here, I think.
Thanks,
Go ahead,
Bob.
I make a motion to approve an application to the Planning and Zoning Commission for the 830G Affordable Housing Project consisting of 11 units. The site located at 28 South Street in the RMO zone, tax assessment map 22, block 21, lot 07. The commission carefully reviewed the application under section 830G of the Connecticut state statutes, in particular those items pertaining to health, safety, welfare of the potential residents and those residential areas surrounding the property. The commission approved the application with the following conditions, 1 through 12. In making its decision, the commission recognizes the need for affordable housing in the town of Bethel.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is Infinity Enterprises LLC Site Plan Special Permit, 25 Francis J. Clark Circle. We did close the hearing. At this time, we can't make a decision on this until we get the inland wetlands report.
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Moving on to new
Pat,
business.
could I ask a question about that?
Yeah, sure.
When it comes to the this site, was the address determined? You know, remember Tom wanted a different address.
They're working with the building department on that.
It's still
Building
being- okay.
does the assignments for that, and him and Tom are working that out.
All right. That's all.
We have to work with the post office also.
Okay.
All right, moving on to new business. Beth?
We have no new business presently at this time.
Planning and zoning official report?
As far as the officials report, spring is here. People are opening their windows and their blinds, and they're noticing what their neighbors are up to and what they're doing. And we've been receiving many calls and many complaints in regards to construction equipment, things like that, things along those lines. So enforcement wise, we're very busy. And also I think that you've started to see some improvements at 123 Greenwood Avenue. That is going on the market very shortly, and you will probably see another dumpster there this weekend. And it's making some progress, and will continue to do so in a very short period of time, because there are blight things on the property. There's cease and desist on the property, etc.
Good.
Yeah, you're right. It does still look pretty bad.
Yeah.
They're working on it.
Yeah, exactly. As I said, they did have that sale on Saturday. All right, moving on.
Full of stuff out of there.
What, Bob?
They took a dumpster full out of there also on Saturday.
Oh, okay. Commission comments. Penny.
Quick question. On Greenwood Avenue, there in front of Dr. Mike's, there is a new business,
Oh yeah. Right.
laptop, whatever, repair,
Repairs. Yeah.
which apparently must be a very big deal because they're popping up all over the place. For the last week, for several days, they had a boombox on their little front porch area there, blasting away.
Oh.
Is that an okay thing? Is that done?
What
I'm
were
not going in to say anything, but I'm just curious.
Were they blasting an ad or something?
No,
or?
music. Oh, great music. I mean, fun to, dance up and down the street to, which is why I was getting funny looks. But just hey, watch that laughter, Pat. But I was just wondering, just curious if that's an okay thing.
I don't know I don't know.
I haven't heard it. So.
Maybe that's a question to ask Shree to talk to his tenant.
Hmm.
Does Shree own that building?
He does.
Yes.
The Dr. Mike's building?
Yes.
I have to run in
He does.
English in the next couple of days, and I will speak to him with a wink and a smile. And,
Nice.
just curious.
Oh, but that was a good question, Penny.
It is a good question because I'm pretty good with the regs and I can't come up with an answer right off the top of my head,
Right.
No.
but I'll look at it.
Okay, just curious.
Any other commission member comments?
No.
All right, moving out to the public. Any public comments? BJ?
I have a question, and it's mostly for Beth, I think. In the world of planning and zoning, in the future, will there be any requirements put in for an examination of whether, it's feasible to put on solar panels, or, and this is where I was really going, with putting in capability for electric charging for cars. I just got through reading the new Bill Gates book, and he's all about, climate change and building infrastructure. And at the local level, he was saying that, you should work on this.
Isn't electric charging for the public parking lots?
Yes.
And by the old train station, there's one there.
Yeah, those
too.
are public parking lots.
Yeah,
Yep.
but that's not, if the electric vehicles go the way they're proposing,
Right.
by 2030, people are going to want to be charging at home overnight, or, quicker chargers than that. So whether that's something, especially in, multifamily buildings, they should put the wiring in at least, or, put in some capability and then see where it goes.
So,
Just what?
no, I understand what you're saying, BJ. I do know that right now, our new director of public works, there are some grants available through WestCog dealing with the charging. I think he's reviewing that for other locations here in town. I think that you have some merit as far as larger developments per se. For example, if the Rubino piece was ever developed out on Route 6, we probably should start making arrangements for that type of development to have charging stations. Again, with the solar, obviously we do allow solar uses in town, but I think that the incentive for larger developments to use solar would have to come down from the federal and state government in the use of grants and things like that in order to make it financially viable for them to use it in regards to a project. I don't think we should be the ones to make requirements as such. But it's interesting that you bring that up, because if you recall, the commission might recall, and maybe you're already aware of this, Target is an excellent example of someone who, after the building was built, that they did go and install solar panels on their whole roof to help them with some energy costs associated with their freezers and things of that nature. So, but I think that maybe what we should do is, I would, as an ex officio member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I would make it a requirement for all of us to read Bill Gates' books on the matter. BJ?
I think that's an excellent idea.
Okay.
Good job, you.
If it becomes a requirement to have charging stations in every project, then you have to also tie it into, your parking requirements, I would believe.
Yes.
That's a good idea.
Right, any other public comments? All right, hearing none. If I may have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed, abstention. Thank you all. We are adjourned.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.